In this video, we're going to break down the difference in the change in the state of delivery between a breaker and a mitigation block with ES and NQ. So if you look at the example drawn here, we'll say this is NQ, the red being NQ, and then the blue will be ES. And so we're going to go through two different examples here. The first one being when NQ makes a breaker, and ES makes a mitigation block. So in order for this to be changing the state of delivery for both, actually let's go with this being NQ and this being ES. So we'll have the SMR here on NQ, the SMR there on ES. We have a breaker on ES, and we have a mitigation block on NQ. And so with this scenario, you have to have NQ get above this mitigation block in order for it to be CSD. Okay, and then same with ES, it can be CSD over the breaker or CSD over the IFVG, over the fair value gap. Okay, same thing here. You know, if you're looking at NQ, you might think this is CSD, but it's not, okay, because we didn't make a lower low. So when you have SMT between the two lows in this form, whenever you have NQ make a higher low, you have to wait on it to get above this high. NQ has to get above that high on a closing basis for it to be a change in the state of delivery. And then for ES, it would be either this or this. But as soon as NQ gets above here, you can look to take the long. Okay, so if NQ gets above the mitigation block at this point here, and we've only got above the IFVG at that point, at the same time as ES, then it's valid to take a long, okay? So let's switch these up now. So let's put ES here and NQ here. So we have a breaker on NQ, we have a mitigation on ES. SMR is going to be here, SMR is going to be here. Okay, so we have the breaker here, we have the mitigation block. In this scenario, you don't have to wait on the mitigation block, because if you're going to be trading NQ, you don't have to wait on the other asset to get above the mitigation block. What you want to wait on is either, this would be the very first thing you wait on for CSD. So this is CSD here, going from bearish to bullish. It could also be a breaker, or a breaker and a fair value gap on this side of the curve, as long as it's over on this side of the curve, okay? And you don't need to wait on this. So say I'm going to go long, I want to go long here. I don't need to wait on ES to close above this mitigation block, because it's already changed the state of delivery here with the IFVG. Okay, so I can take the long on NQ as soon as we get above that, or if it doesn't look that great, I can wait until we get above the breaker and then take the long here, even if ES hasn't got above the mitigation block. Okay, because technically we're looking at this IFVG as the change in the state of delivery. Okay. But remember, if this was reversed, if this was NQ rather than ES, you have to wait on the mitigation block. Okay, so that's the main difference I want to point out between these two scenarios. And now let's look at a live chart. So we have NQ at the top. So we have a mitigation block. We have this high, lower high, and then we have ES here with a high, then a higher high. So with ES here, we have a breaker. With NQ, we have a mitigation block. So in order for this to be CSD, in order for us to take a trade, whenever NQ forms a lower high, okay? Anytime NQ forms a lower high, aka a mitigation block, we have to wait on the mitigation block to get closed through before we take a trade. Because the only time we're going to take a trade whenever NQ has a mitigation block is when ES forms a breaker. Okay? If NQ forms a breaker, it's much different, much easier. You just wait on the breaker to get traded through and then go short. So in this example, you can't go short until this candle closes. The 539 candle, once we close here down below the mitigation block, the next candle you can take a short. We open, touch the mitigation block, you can go short because we've confirmed CSD. Now, if you want to wait for both assets to confirm CSD, there is a small fair value gap here. You can consider that CSD. I probably wouldn't. What I would wait on is this candle here, 543, for that closure, 544 closure, and then we retest. So after 544, there's CSD on both assets. And then what happens? It runs up. You can take a short. It runs up on ES. We have to reject this. We have to reject this. So you can take your short with the stop above the high and then trade it lower. Okay? But you have to wait on NQ to trade through the mitigation block. Okay? In this scenario, when you have the lower highs, when you have the higher highs, you have to wait to go through the mitigation block. You can't just take it based on a fair value gap. Okay, like if there was a fair value gap here, that wouldn't classify as CSD. This is the only thing that classifies CSD when there's a lower high on NQ compared to ES. Now let's look for another example. Okay, let's zoom out a bit and then let's open up the chart here. See if we can find another example real quick. Okay, so we have an example here where we have a breaker on NQ and a mitigation block on ES. This one's a little larger. Okay, so we're going to go with the mitigation block being up here. On ES. So I'm looking at this low and this low compared to this low and this low. And then what we have is SMR here. And what we have is SMR here. Okay, so SMR's there. Mitigation, run higher. NQ here. Breaker would be all the way up here. Mitigation here. SMR here, SMR here. So what you can look at here in this scenario is the left side of the curve here. Okay, right there, we have an IFVG. Okay, once we close above, that's CSD on ES. There's no trade yet. There's no SMT. Okay, so we have the CSD on ES. There's no SMT. We come down, take a new low with NQ, SMT between these two cycles. 90-minute cycle SMT occurs between here. Okay. SMT here between those two lows. But what you don't need to do is wait on ES to close above here. Okay, this is the whole point of this video. ES doesn't need to close above that before you take a long here on NQ. So let's just say you do wait, 446, we close above the mitigation. We've changed the state and delivery here, and then 454, we change the state of delivery here on ES or on NQ. So you take your longs. What I want to show you is a more advanced way of doing this. So SMR here, fair value gap, that's CSD. This is the left side of the curve. Okay. Everything from this low over is the left side of the curve. So that's your first change in the state of delivery there on ES. We make the new low on NQ, higher low on ES. What's the first change in the state of delivery on NQ? Same thing. Fair value gaps, inverted, CSD at 4:23 a.m. Close above, retest, and we're off. That could be your trade. Technically, you can get long right there. Stop below the low. That low should be protected because we've changed the state of delivery on ES as well. Okay. It was just several minutes ago. At 3:40, we changed the state of delivery. At 4:23, we did it on NQ. It gives you a much tighter risk reward and a better trade. Now, if you're not comfortable taking the IFVG, you can wait on a breaker. We don't have one here except for up here. Okay. Sometimes there will be a little breaker in here that you can get long off of. But that's not the case here. We just have up close candles, order blocks. There's the first CSD. Okay. So instead of waiting until 4:54 to get in, you can get in right here at 4:23. Okay? So, because technically if you go long here, you still have to respect your stop loss and put it down below the SMR. Okay? Because we haven't come, like this is the SMR. This is the smart money reversal, low risk buy. Like this is all the same phase. And you can't move your stop higher. Okay? There's no time cycle SMT that allows you to place your stop higher. Okay? So you save yourself a lot of risk here. 38-point stop compared to what would be a 16-point stop. So you basically cut it in half. It's a little bit higher risk because you don't get above the breaker. But the point is you don't need to wait on this. I don't want you to wait on this. Okay? When we have the breaker here, trade the SMR as long as there's CSD on this side of the curve on ES, you're good to go. So hopefully this video helps. If you guys have questions, let me know. Otherwise, that'll be it.